Durban studios, where we find criminal law lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Franaaz Khan, to shed some light on what we've heard so far. Franaaz, good morning. Thank you for joining us on Morning News today. Now, Oscar Pistorius' defense, Barry Rue, has sought to show that more than 90% of the text exchanges between this couple were loving, that there was love and in this relationship, and despite the 4 messages that we saw that actually showed that there was some kind of argument or conflict between them. Now, does it matter about the number of texts that are actually showing a conflict in this relationship, and are those texts as important as the context if we're looking at number and the content of them?
Good morning. Excuse me. I think that when one is looking at electronic evidence that's presented in court, and in this instance the text messages, the content as well as the number of messages are both important factors in different respects. If you're looking at the number of messages that were exchanged between the parties here, the number actually would create the context of the relationship. The context meaning there was no communication barrier that existed, and the context, it creates the context of the relationship in that respect. If you're looking at the content of the messages that was sent, the content then will establish the type of relationship that existed between the parties. The type of relationship meaning, was it one that was a one-sided abusive relationship? Did it show tendencies of being a bad relationship, or tendencies of being a normal relationship that had a bit of both, the good and the bad? And yes, we did see that Rue had downplayed the 4 messages. It was quite clear that he had relied on the number of messages that were sent between the parties to establish that it was actually, in fact, a loving relationship.
Now, just judging by those 4 messages, Franaaz, that were actually, that did prove that there was quite a bit of jealousy in this, and that the couple had their fair share of problems. Just to you, as a legal mind, were they particularly damaging? Could they cause sort of considerable damage to the defense's case here?
I think that one has to view those messages that were, that were presented in court in totality. And like we said, that 90% of the messages were seen to be of, of establishing a normal relationship that existed between a couple. So I think it's, I don't want to be speculative, but I probably would think that it's not as damaging when it comes to, the defense's case.
In terms of cell phone evidence, I mean, this seems to have played a big part in this case so far. Just how important and how reliable is cell phone evidence? I mean, it looks like, things are sort of changing in our courts for now in terms of just where we're getting our information from. And cell phone seems to be playing a big part in this case.
I think that we're living in an era now where you're having these advancements with technology that's occurring on a regular basis. So it obviously posed challenges when it came to the law, and then we saw the enactment of the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act. We also saw reforms being made to the Criminal Procedure Act that tried to accommodate for these changes. And today, when you're dealing with electronic evidence and text messages in this instance, it carries the same amount of weight as oral evidence presented in court, as real evidence presented in court. So it actually, it would carry the same amount of weight. It plays an important role in, improving a state's case or disproving the state's case.
In terms of where the state wrapping up and just what we've heard from them, Franaaz, can you sort of wrap your mind around now exactly whether they have made their point and what that point actually was?
I think that the essence of the state's case here was to show that Oscar's misconduct was in fact of an intentional nature. If you are proving murder, I think one of the difficult elements that any legal mind faces is proving this element of intention. So I think that the state was ultimately trying to prove this element of intention, to show that his actions were not of a culpable nature, but rather of an intentional nature. So that was their aim, I think, in the entire process when they were leading evidence.
All right, thank you very much for your time. Criminal law lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Franaaz Khan, joining us from our Durban studios there.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com